So you start, how about if each one of you would just sort of introduce yourselves, number one, tell everybody where you are, because we want this to be a networking opportunity. And then if you have something in the festival this year, right? So we'll start any place, start somewhere.
Hi, I'm Shawn Burkett. I'm a writer, director, editor, composer, all the things. I have a film in the festival this year that plays at 3 p.m. called Mr. Buzzkill.
And where are you from?
Oh, Dayton, Ohio.
I'm Tim Whiteford. I'm from Southern Illinois, Carbondale, Illinois, and I'm a musician and composer. And I entered the film score competition. Mine will be shown tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. I think I'm willing to be, maybe. That's me.
Hi, my name is Cora Sfida. I'm from New York City. I am a writer, director, and actor. Our film is Choose Your Fate. It's a short horror film. It'll be tomorrow at 11. And yeah, that's what we'll do.
I'm Nick Mallon. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've been entering this competition since 2019. And I don't have a film playing this year, but I would like to. And if you'd like me to work on anything, please tell me. I'd be happy.
Yeah, most of you then, you're director and composer. Just sort of do it. Have you worked with, just as a role as a composer, with another director or another producer? If you have, what was that like? Can you share that with us? No, okay. Moving on to the next question. Sound so important, especially in horror films. How do you fix bad sound?
That's a big question.
We've got plenty of time.
Filmmakers probably have more to say on that.
How to fix it?
As far as dialogue track, I mean, luckily, depending on what program you're using, I know Final Cut offers a lot of options as far as to get out that background noise to kind of build it up and make it sound a little better. But the best way is just to have somebody know what they're doing, recording the audio, not for nothing.
So like, would you have to like splice it, or like just like, would you re-record?
I mean, a lot of times I would just do ADR. Luckily, these days, everybody has an iPhone or an Android that has a $1,000 microphone built into it, so I'm a big fan of just having people do it on their phone, send it to me, and I fix it.
I totally agree. The film that we just did, we actually didn't shoot like any audio on set. We did everything by hand in after productions. We did all of our recording through Foley. And I think the most important was like very much having a safe space, not safe space, well, also a safe space, but a good space that can do really good sound, so you can kind of be able, if you need to, you can mess with it after. So having a kind of a clean tape and then it would distort like we did.
And what was the purpose for not shooting dialogue on set?
So our entire film actually has no dialogue whatsoever. So we wanted to really primarily focus on soundtrack and Foley and the importance of both. You don't need dialogue. Music is so important. It evokes emotion. And I think like if you're taking away dialogue, we wanted the full focus to just kind of be primarily on, I'm losing my tongue. We just wanted to focus on the clarity of that, so that could be our main thing. A lot of our soundtracks that we do prior were very big and like organic sounds and 50 to like 180 tracks. So this was like something that we wanted to like minimize the amount of that.
Can I ask what was the name of your film again?
Oh yeah, it's called Choose Your Fate. Yes, tomorrow at 11.
Oh, I have a question. We're talking about how soundtracks are so important to some of these short films. Nick, with some of your work, like The Watchers and the COVID Nurse movies you scored, really didn't think very highly of the visuals, but what I liked about it was the score, because I really was, with the co-nurse, I really was feeling what she was feeling, because the music, pitch, and intensity kind of spoke to you like that, but you know, it excited you. So I'm just kind of curious, what is your process like for the watchers? You had 3 notes that got me so excited and kind of nervous, anticipating what the next scene was going to be. So since I was so moved by what you scored, what is a process, or what is the process that people who score films use? Do they watch the film first, or do they stop frame by frame and kind of like anticipate what the character should be feeling? Or do you just take an overview, like this woman's going to be upset, and say, okay, what's a very upsetting score that's going to have a score? So what is your process? How do you do it?
I don't know if you guys agree, but I have to watch it like 100 times just to, you know, come up with an idea of what I want to do. So for stuff like, it's kind of hard with short films because I take from the John Williams idea of giving everything a leitmotif and then just repeating those throughout the story. So if, you know, in 2 minutes, how do you build up a theme that much that can connect with people? Just doing that over and over again.
It's just a matter of tinkering around with different sounds.
Yep, pretty much.
I've found that I think a lot of film has like a rhythm to it, like musically, that when I'm scoring something, I'm watching it over and over to really find that, what that rhythm is, because writing a piece of music to it, like, it's kind of hard syncing things up, So I've often found that, finding like a good rhythm to it, and like you're saying, the motif that could, play off of that, as far as pacing, and timing goes to it.
So most of you are directors also, so you'd also be editing them. So you sort of go through the whole process then. So the pace of the project will then start with the editing part, and then you go into the music part. Do you ever jump back and forth?
Yeah, we primarily, when we do our editing, I do most of the editing as well. We actually plan out our soundtrack kind of before, so we can also edit to the music, so it like hits certain spots. So yeah.
I just compose, so I'm not a director.
I don't know, for me, I have an idea of, even if it's something that I didn't make, like I didn't write, I'll read the script first and generally find a song that I can relate to out there, and it's going to be a weird song. Most of the stuff I do is horror themed, to where I'll find like an acoustic ballad that just, for me, makes it relatable. So then from there I edit the complete film with that in mind, and then granted that it's mainly the tempo for that song that will just transfer over to what I end up composing. Because every film has its own heartbeat, and sometimes it skips beats, or sometimes it'll be faster. So I try to find something that's just kind of right there in the middle that can keep that like almost like a monotone heartbeat for the whole thing. That was a weird answer, wasn't it?
No.
Everybody was quiet.
I'm intrigued.
When it comes to making sounds for films, do you have like a favorite like sound prop that you have used?
Okay, I got some. My favorite, specifically when I choose your fate. If you watch it, there's a scene at the end where we did like primarily sound. You don't see it. So we took like watermelons and raw meats and all that. Specifically watermelons, because we wanted to do like the head cracking and all the good stuff. So that was probably mine. Smashing a bunch of watermelon.
That sounds fun. Yeah. I use a lot of like vintage instruments and the stuff I do, and kind of unconventional guitar tunings and such that I've come up with on my own. So that's kind of my go-to. As I've always tried to make everything sound the way I wanted to in the room live when I was recording it, so I didn't have to do a lot of mixing and tweaking of it after the fact. So yeah, just finding any weird old instrument that, you know, you can make a sound out of that it wasn't really intended to be made out of. Kind of like that.
Yeah.
I'm just a composer, I don't mess with.
Oh, no.
Oh,
I do a lot of like preacher movies, so I'm a weird guy. I always have a microphone on me because you walk through some places and I use a lot of creaky doors for different sounds, so I'm always recording different doors that I go through, and it's great when like there's a hospital in Dayton that has a like old wing, and people just look at me like, what are you doing? Like, why has he like moved this door like this fast and then this fast? Like, they watch me just like I'm a complete moron, but with something like that, you can manipulate so much to do just so much with it.
What kind of microphone do you use when you find those like doors with those sound effects?
I used to carry it was by Shure, but since then I've gotten just these little Rode, I think they're called the Wireless Go. They come in like a set of two, to where you can clip it on to do interviews or just, but it comes with a little dead cap on it and everything, and it's awesome.
okay, so then just the composers. Talk to us about working with the editor, working with the director, and finding that sound because you're also working with somebody else and you want to get their approval, get their okay on it, and how do you work with them to do that?
So I haven't worked on anything with anybody. If you want me to, tell me. I will. But so for me, it's about watching the trailer and watching for hit points. So if somebody's smashing a bottle over somebody's head, you want music right there. You want something big to hit right there to emphasize that. Then also like if there's a scene going from that to something romantic, you want to lead into that with the music so that the audience anticipates that something else is coming. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I also have not really worked with a whole lot of folks scoring an entire film, but they've taken songs of mine and put them in films where they felt that it worked well. But as far as like, I had a good interview with the folks who made the In Search of Darkness documentaries about the 80s and 90s horror, and I applied for that job last year and got shortlisted, so I was one of the 5 people that they interviewed for the job. I did not get it, unfortunately, but in that interview process, it was a great learning experience because they talked about some things David Weiner did about like horror movie music doesn't always have to sound scary, and dramatic music doesn't always sound sad or and so forth. So it was a good learning experience of like thinking of how you can really set the pace without it being like this is a horror movie. It has to sound scary and so on. So that was good advice, I thought, from a filmmaker.
So when there is dialogue, how do you deal with, because I think there's layers, right? There's dialogue first, sound design, and then when you're composing, you could be using sound design because you're creating new instruments and that kind of thing too, but it all has to serve the story and the dialogue. So what's your process for like, do you listen to the dialogue while you're composing, or do you mute it out, or how do you keep it fresh in your mind so that it's working always with?
I don't want to say this. The dialogue's the most important thing that the audience should be listening to. So whenever that comes up, I kind of, drop everything. Everything's like playing whole notes. There's not a lot going on. I find that's just the best way for me to approach it right now.
I agree. Yeah, not keeping it too busy.
Keeping it
when there's
simple.
yeah. you know,
And that goes with your idea that the movie has a pace, right? And the pace can change. There's some slow moments and fast moments, so your tempo's going to change, but the dialogue could be fast or slow. So how do you marry that up with what you're writing?
okay, that's the question, I think. Yeah, how to add to it with, add something to it without, being a distraction or, yeah, exactly.
It's like the hardest thing.
Yes,
Balance, you know.
I'm not sure I really have an answer.
Not with this film specifically, but we just released a film. It was like all comedy and all organic. We used bands and like made it's a commentary film on 2000s kind of rom-coms and that kind of stuff. But we had a huge issue because we wanted all these like big band sounds, but like the dialogue was losing pace, and if the music doesn't correlate with the dialogue within the moments, it's like, what is the actor or the story's objective? Can you make that objective the same way with the music, and how do you get there?
And like Nick was saying, needing space, for, I think that's, just as important as the music is where there is no music.
Silence is so important.
Yeah, it makes what you're gonna do next, that much more impactful.
Are there ever any times where it's really obvious that there should be silence? Like, I feel like creating films, it's really hard to leave that blank space for too long.
You get bored. I mean, I don't know, for me, I get bored to where if there's not gonna be score there, I'm gonna make sure that there's some sort of, at least atmosphere. Whether it's, that there's a fan in the background that we can hear, or the city streets, or something like that. Just having that silence of like, just a room and people talking. I know for me, it's just kind of like, why? I know sometimes it's called for, but a lot of times people will just then lose their interest. Like, no matter, I can only speak from my experience, but like, I've made movies to where I'm like, God, I love this story. I'm not gonna sacrifice anything. And then I put it out and people watch it and they're like, this was boring as shit. And I'm like, but you gotta think, it's an art piece. Like, well, I don't understand that art. So I don't know, I would say it depends on like, who you're really trying to attract. If you're trying to get more eyes on the project, silence is not golden, for sure.
I have a question. I watch a series where they're very short films, and they're short films from 4 to different sci-fi themes. Everyone's scored with music. I was just kind of curious. It's the ones that where it's just one character throughout. They seem pretty complex. It's like you gotta follow that one character's emotional state. Are those really hard to compose and follow because you have to turn and switch gears so quickly? One minute she's happy, the next minute she's terrified, the next minute she's having a resolution. Is it hard to have such a short piece of music where you have to switch gears so often so you convey what it's about, so the audience can feel what the actress is feeling or the actor? Is that really hard to compose?
I would say yes.
Well, since Nick is saying yes, if that's really hard to compose, and I know you said you watch it frame by frame, when you stop and watch it frame by frame, are you putting yourself in that character's position? What exactly are you doing when you stop? Or are you looking at as the audience member thinking, okay, I can kind of see she's getting upset. How would I let them know without using words that she's upset? Or are you saying, how would I feel if the big dragon's going to come eat me? So that's got to be just kind of hard to put together. And because at the end, if you don't do it just right, it's got to sound funky because you can't have a happy melody, sad and scared melody. And it's probably pretty hard to do those transitions too.
Yes.
That's why you should pay composers more.
Well, exactly. That's, I
It
guess.
is hard. I mean, you try to attach the emotions to what's going on the screen, right? And the story's making a transition, so that's the fun part of writing is how do I go from, terrified to overjoyed in, 4 measures. Right.
Yeah, doing it in a short period of time is the hardest part. Like, I've got too many notes going on in my head that I want to put down in this spot, but, you know, like scoring the trailer for the competition, it's like a minute long, you know? So, yeah, you're, you know, 4 bars in, and I'm like, it's, you know, I'm already gone, you know, a third of the trailer, so it's, you know, yes, it's definitely hard squeezing a lot into a short period of time for myself, I think.
That's why we're all millionaires.
So would you say that the transitionals are probably the most challenging thing when it comes to scoring?
I would say yes. It's just how to get one place to another, especially if there is a big juxtaposition or everything. It's really hard to make that swing and not have the audience being taken out of it. So it's a fine line and balance.
Well, that's gotta be really hard when there's absolutely zero dialogue and if you took away that soundtrack, it just like look like a person running around frantically. So that's gotta be very hard, especially if you're dealing with the psychological, like modern with mental illness. That's quite a challenge to compose something like that. Composing, you're basically doing an inner soundtrack of somebody's emotional state. It's gonna be very hard. So how do you have to have a read on people's emotions and feelings to be able?
Oh, yeah, I think you very much, like an actor does its table work. You have to do your same. Like, you have to be able to assume and feel that character as well in order for that music to happen. That's how I kind of energetic. But yeah.
So you kind of act it out yourself, and you're like, okay, what would my mental soundtrack be?
Go on, it'd be crazy.
I have a question, and I'm going to stand up because I'm a teacher, and so I can see all of you. But I teach psychology for college in Texas, and at the end of each semester, I ask them if they want to do a special social psychology of horror lecture, and they always want to do it, especially in October when we have that coming up. So on the speaking about emotions, my question is: have you ever received any feedback from viewers as to the most unsettling sounds that really induce anxiety? My students ask about that a lot. So like for me, it's a baby cry. Like a baby crying is going to induce anxiety quickly in me.
Yes, I did some music for a haunt that was, well, music, I use that term loosely, but, and there was some, one of the sound effects I use is a rabbit call. It sounds, I think it's to call other animals, but it's a rabbit distress sound. And if you've ever heard it, it sounds like a baby crying, and it's very unsettling. And yes, and there was some loud like buzzers as well as this sound going off, and it went from being kind of just ominous tones to that all of a sudden. And I think that my goal was to make it very unsettling, and I was told that it was effective. So, yes.
For me, for hard ones, like all the screeching and the high-pitched stuff. So for what we did, we took like guitar strings, we would play on pedals, and then we would reverse the sound with scraping. And for some reason, that always hit, and it jingles people's.
Yeah.
I think you got to experiment to find what's that pinpoint of what puts people uncomfortable, what's putting them on the edge of something.
Which is the opposite of what most musicians try to do.
Right, that's what we're
the goal
talking
is
about.
not generally to make people feel uncomfortable. Yes, yeah. I'm like a live performer musician, you know, mostly, and so when I started doing film scores, yeah, that was the tricky thing for me. Is like my goal was always to make people feel good or want to hear this. Is like, how do you make a sound that people are like, God, that's awful. You know, so, yeah, that was challenging.
My birthday is Halloween, and he bought me a water phone, you know, with the, I don't know if that's, but it's got the bow, and so I bring that just to class and have students, you know, kind of hear all the different off-pitch kind of sounds and whatnot, so that's their favorite part of it.
That's great.
When it comes to like marketing yourself as a film scorer, what have you found that has worked in previous years and what doesn't work? Because I mean, the social, you know, it changes all the time. Whether, you know, they're in social media, now social media is not popular. So like, what is probably your most go-to way to like market yourself as a newer film scorer?
Who's got the answer for that?
For me personally, I'm on all the websites, but a lot of my work and the client work that comes from is like through in person and like going to film festivals or networking events or kind of just putting yourself out there. And it's the one-on-ones I feel like that really help get that personal.
Yes, I agree. Meeting people in person. I tour like around the country all the time, so I'm meeting people and trying to, connect that way in person as well as social media. I've got my postcards right here. You can take one. Like Nick said, I think everyone's for hire up here. So, but I mean, I don't know that there's something that works or doesn't work. I think it's trying to connect with people that are like-minded and have the same ideas that you do.
I think for me, I offer, for a lot of new filmmakers, honestly, they can't afford what a composer would charge. So therefore, I kind of offer like tiers of things. Like if you want something 100% original, that's going to cost more than using like stems and just creating an arrangement that works. But because 9 times out of 10, they're taking the arrangement because it's cheaper and quicker. So that's kind of a downfall, but if you can offer that too, it doesn't hurt.
I think having a lot of stuff, on the back burner, ready to go when somebody needs, if you get a job and they're like, what do you got? Like, well, you're gonna have a lot of stuff to show them.
And a range of things.
Exactly, yeah, not just one.
I'll have an answer for you next year.
We're sort of drifting into one of the questions that I had, and that is financially and time-wise, how do you budget for a music for a film? So if you're talking to a bunch of producers and you're saying, okay, yeah, I can do music for your film, how do you figure out how much you're going to charge them for? What's it going to cost?
I feel like it really depends on what they want specifically. Like we do everything in-house. We use our own musicians, we have our own kind of studio, and we usually try to make it as easy as you said, music is so hard, especially for a lot of money. So we try to make it kind of work with whatever they kind of want, but we do budgetize very well.
So you'd want a producer to come to you with a certain budget for the music, and you say, I'll work within that budget.
Oh yeah, but we say this is what we can offer, and this is if you wanted, we kind of also have a tier system as well. It's if you do want this specific thing, and you want to do a Foley or mixing or whatever, it kind of does add up and it kind of keeps it. We have generalized things, but very much it's based on the budget of the project and what they want.
And you have a rate card for that?
Yeah, whatever.
You want to give us the website here?
So we have two. We have two companies. We have Spruce Video Solutions, which is pretty much all of we rent here, and also a lighting house. And then we have County Ray Pictures, which is our production company, and we do primarily all of our commercial work through there.
Anybody else want to add to that? How would you budget your time?
Yeah, I would prefer, yes, a producer come to me and say, here's the budget, here's what we can work with, and I can cater to that as well. Cora was saying, I think. But, as far as figuring out what you can, how much time you're putting in for what they're going to pay you, I guess is it's like you said, depends on the project, Yeah.
For me, I also, there's been a new, I don't know how you guys are attacking this, but a lot of people, so basically if you hire me to compose something 100% original, you don't own that. You're basically paying to license it. If you then want to own it, that's a whole separate charge, because a lot of people are doing soundtracks and putting out exclusive vinyls to where basically we would get none of that. So it's kind of and that comes back to that's why a lot of people go, as far as when I score something, they just want an arrangement versus something 100% original, because well, it's indie film, we just don't have the money.
And that segues into my question is how do you overcome like knowing when to copyright your own stuff or how to even mitigate going around different copyrights, like a director really wants this one song. How would you go about working around different copyrights and using music from Creative Commons, and how would you, like, what is your best way to like mitigate all of that?
I know as far as original stuff, and what is it? It's been so long since I've been, ASCAP or BMI, I know where things,
Yeah, if you have a pro account
yeah.
with one of them, yeah.
You can license stuff through there. It's been forever since I've done that, but that's back when I was in a band. So I would imagine that would still apply to creating score for film work.
Unless, like you're saying, they're buying it and they're putting out
Right.
the soundtrack, you know. That's when I interviewed for In Search of Darkness, that was their deal, was that, well, that's what they were offering, was that, you know, they're buying all of it. And then once I gave it to them, they go, you know. So I received nothing from the soundtrack and so forth, but, you know. So, yeah. I guess it would have to pay well enough to you to, you know, say, yes, I'm not going to receive any of that, you know.
Okay, let's talk dirty. Let's talk about artificial intelligence and how is that affecting what you do? How have you used it? Have you avoided it? How's that mixed into everything you're doing?
I have not used AI for music in any way, but I'm sure people are.
I don't personally use it, but I do think it is a great tool to find references, especially like with filmmaking. You can move forward, you can search, hey, I'm kind of looking for, this is like kind of my idea, and like, what are films, if you can't move any, that like kind of match that, but for sound,
I feel like most of those sites have a clause in their user agreement that you can't make money off of anything created on there.
Because that's a slippery slope, because who
Yeah,
owns the rights
that's
to
a
that?
whole legal
Yeah,
battle
you know.
you don't want to try to fight. Next thing you know, Disney's coming after you, and you're like, how did we get here? Just don't do it. Don't.
Yeah, I think in indie film, like you said, I don't think it's necessary.
Right.
But it can be a tool that a producer could use or a director could use, saying, hey, this is sort of the mood I'm going with, or this is how the feel I want to have. So it can be a tool to use that way.
Sure.
I've had more directors just like, I don't know, I hate to say it like this, but they're like, where the girl gets taken down at first in Jaws. I want that vibe. Like, I'll get a lot of references to other films and other points. Then again, I don't think that I work with a ton of very great directors because they're just like, copy this. And then I do something similar and they're like, no, I said copy this. And it's like, I'm not getting sued over something you want to do, just no.
So when it comes to like building your initial portfolio of like sounds, do you just find yourself recording more than anything, or do you like to take like old movies and trailers and try to rewrite something? What's the best way that you would go about just starting to like build up your profile as a newer film scorer?
Yeah, I would write and record as much as possible. That's what I've been trying to do. And just to, like I said, have a stockpile of, you know, different things, different styles, and, you know, yeah, all mine's on my YouTube channel. You can see they're film score, you know, demos, because they're scores I wrote for films that don't exist.
Right, so you would just take like old trailers and movies and try to rewrite them? Like, what is your process for trying to, was it more original? I guess what I'm asking, is it more original, or do you like to recycle old movies and try to like write music similar to that?
I always like taking reference. I think reference is super important, but I do think that you need to find your own path and kind of your own sound that goes with it. So like if you are making a soundtrack, yeah, I don't know. It's very much on the vibe of what you're trying to find. You want to find your own way. Like I don't know, you make your own music constantly. I think music is made through soul and energy. So it's like whatever you can take, and whatever you get from that image or trailer or whatever, you kind of implement that.
You want to give more advice to composers? Because then I'm going to ask you about giving advice to producers.
Can I ask something real fast before you move to the conclusion? Is kind of off what you were saying is, so what if you are only a composer and you want to get stuff out there? What does the video look like? Are you allowed to use someone's old video and then just put your music on top of it? Is that kind of what you were saying? And I didn't really quite, or are you even allowed to do that? Or do you just put images, or like what do you do?
If it's in public domain, you know, lots of us have used Night of the Living Dead and many things, you know, for years and years. But yeah, I mean, you can, when I'm writing something that's like a demo piece, I guess I kind of get a vision in my head, and I have used, you know, just like a image, you know, on the, you know, not a video, but, you know, of just something that I thought went with the vibe or the, you know, the theme of it, but, you know, yeah. Are you using old footage?
I mean, we mostly do all of our soundtracks for every film, so I mostly do music stuff from our films, but and like client work using that, so we just kind of compile that as part of it.
There was somebody had a question over here.
It came in a little bit late, so this might have already been asked, but I was wondering from an editor's point of view, in your professions, whether it's for score or sound design, do you prefer editorial to do like a very thorough temp score, temp sound design mix that gets sent over to you guys? Or do you find that that tends to like limit the director's openness towards like you and the director creating something together?
Yeah, I would feel like it might limit it, you know, but I guess on the other hand, it's a good example of like, this is what I want.
There's sometimes where you have like writer's block, and you're like, I don't know what to write. So maybe listening to the temp score would give you an idea.
Right. But I guess it's a fine line, like you're saying, so maybe like copy this scene, or, you know, make it be like this, you know, because then you give them something that's your interpretation of that. It's nothing like what they thought it was going to be, you know.
I do think it's very important to have a very strong communication between your editor and also your sound, because wherever you want to take it, you have to work together to get there.
I've never had that option. I've been the editor, composer, sound designer, everything, so, yeah, the first guy needs fired. But for the directors I've worked with, most times I've never had that experience. They've never been like, here's this, like to go with the entire film. But also I've worked with, and I will happily throw them under the bus, some cheap directors who they want original score, but they'll settle for just arrangements. That way they can save a buck.
Cool, thank you.
When I was interviewing with David Weiner for that film, he had given me the previous score from the other films. He said they don't want the audience to realize really that there's a different composer. That's kind of how they told me, like, we want it to kind of sound like this, but not exactly like this, you know. Or we don't want people to realize, you know, it doesn't need. They didn't want it to be jarring to be like this is totally different. So, in a way, that did help me, I guess, craft what I was presenting them.
Do you want to give some advice to film producers?
I didn't have this advice. I thought we were going to complain about them. Open up the pocketbook. I feel like that would be,
you know. But Sean, you know, when there's no money, you know, you've got a budget. That's it.
Hold on, but there's a difference. If there's no money, the producer isn't doing their job right, in my opinion. I mean, I've made movies for $500 that have then went on into distribution to make $70,000. To where if you don't have either the right producer or right producers, then that's kind of a problem. Like, not the score especially is, I don't know what you guys charge, but like, well, I can't say that out loud, but, for me, for an original score for a feature-length film, generally I'm at like $4,000. But for me to do an arrangement of stems or even stock stuff that I can buy or download for free, I'll be like $1,500. And producers are gonna be like, well, I'll definitely pay for the $1,500 versus the other. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but then there's a lot of producers that I've worked with that have come with me and like, well, I get that you charge $1,500, but I feel like this is only worth $5. Well, that's nice for you. You can think that, but I'm the one who's gonna sit at a computer for probably 30 hours, even just arranging stuff to, meet your demands, basically. So, have great producers, not necessarily that are just gonna throw money at composers, but who at least understand the importance of, the score. The score is just as much, in my opinion, it's your lead character. So if you don't have good score to complement your acting, it's just, I hate to sound so cast, but what's the point? You're
That's a
just
great point.
making something to make something? In a Hobby Lobby.
You bring something up that I think we missed in the earlier discussion about, there's two ways we make money as composers. Well, one is these upfront fees that you're talking about, which is like, this is pay my time and expenses. But you touched on the pros, like ASCAP and that kind of thing. And this example you had where the film made all this money in distribution, if you didn't, if the producer or director did not file a cue sheet with your pro, with ASCAP or BMI, so that you're capturing that money, those residuals, which is how actors make money, right? And residuals not, well then, some will make a lot of money off the front fee, but if you're fighting for an upfront fee that isn't as big as you want it to be, you have to make sure that your contract has things about, you'll prepare the cue sheet, here's all the cues I wrote, but you have, that's where you'll see the back end money. And I think that's a very important thing that I've worked with directors that had no idea what a cue sheet was because they hadn't gone to distribution or they didn't have that kind of success. And then other ones were, yeah, that's in the contract, send me the cue sheet and I'll file it with that.
Right, because deliverables are a whole different story.
Well, yeah, it's in the contract.
Because then you've got to take your score and tear it apart. You've got to send just the dialogue track, how you edited it, or whatever standpoint you're working at. Each sound that you create for that separate track, you have to render all that separately for distribution. So it's not as easy as what a lot of people think. Like, I just finished deliverables on the film that's playing here today, and it was a pain. It's just, it takes so long, and then it has to go through QC reports, and then you get it back, and they're like, well, it peaks here. Can you fix that? Well, it's supposed to peak there. It's like, that's a part of it. So there's a lot of arguing then. Sorry, I can rant about that.
I actually have a question. In terms of talking of painful deliverables, I've seen a lot of feature distribution and things like that. They're going to want you to do Dolby surround sounds. And usually most people at home when we're mixing them two speakers, we're doing left, right. Well, do any of you have any experience in the process of working with something that extensive, a surround sound sort of system?
I haven't for as far as deliverables. Luckily, any distribution company I've worked with, they've offered to add that to the expense cap. That's another horrible situation because then you just added $5,000 that the film has to make back before any producers see any money. So, but a lot of, oh wow, because then there's even on top of that, if you want to put your film in a theater, you have to have a digital cinema package made, which is a complete other, guys, don't get into scoring.
Run away, run away.
It's a good point. I mean, you're, you know, like, the score is an important link in the chain, but, you know, after you deliver the score, you're not gonna be the one, unless it's a very low budget thing. I mix my score with the dialogue. I do that anyways, because you're writing stuff. But then I'll give just my score to the director. And then there, you know, you have this post-production team who's either, there's an editor, and there's a music. You know, if he's gonna add other songs, he's gonna add, you know, that to it. Dolby is the same thing, right? But, you know, I don't have the equipment or the ability to do that, but there's people that specialize in that type of mix. And they may ask for stems, they may ask for, you know, give me this, this, and this. But, yeah, you can't do it all.
Question back here.
Quick response to you first before I ask my question. A feature I was working on a couple months ago, they're currently still doing post sound right now. And I was over at the sound mixer's house a couple days ago, and his studio is just stupid. Probably a quarter the size of this room and set up for Atmos. And he has like 144 or 152 tiny little speakers just like carved into the space because he gets paid to do that. And stupidly, the producer is paying the money to get this feature done in Atmos when it's like that. There's like 8 theaters in the country that have the setup for that. Like, it's not going that far. Like 7.2 would probably be good enough for this, but a lot of times I feel like stuff like that, unless you're already working on like studio level Marvel universe type stuff, it's unnecessary and it's just like masturbation. Like it's the producers just spending money that doesn't need to be spent, that could be focused on more value. Like 7.2 definitely has its place if you're going to like a properly speaked theater, but anything beyond that, a lot of times it's just unnecessary unless it was like shot on IMAX. The biggest question I have for you guys though is notes. As an editor, I'm used to dealing with people who, like, studio execs, producers, corporate clients who don't understand effective note giving, where it's like, oh, can we glam this up, or we need more, this just needs to be more like that. And it's like, esoteric concepts don't help. What is the best kind of notes that you guys can receive that are going to be helpful, whether it's critical or appraising what you've done, that like helps you really lock in and find the direction you need to move in?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not praising, I don't know.
Well, like what kind of notes would you find to be most constructive?
None. I don't mean that sarcastically. Like, I've worked with directors that will literally just send me an email saying these things, give some sort of reference or whatever. That does not work as well as just a phone call or, you know, what is it, Skype or FaceTiming.
An actual conversation.
An actual conversation. A lot of people don't want to do that these days. God, I sound old. But like, everything can be misinterpreted to where somebody says glam up. Sometimes I want to be a dick and I'll put like a like sound effect just to piss them off. So I definitely like to have that conversation, because if it's just a no, I don't know what you mean. And that could be just because I look at things in a different weird way. But unless you're specific and tell me what you want, I'm going to leave that as it's open to interpretation.
Okay.
Which is, I don't know, people who are not musicians giving musicians notes.
Right.
Like, yeah, if I was to give, a doctor a note like that, they're not gonna, feels very similar, like, well, you trying to interpret what they're asking, same like, having music ahead of time, can be interpreted one way or another.
Well, people don't understand, like, I don't know, like, so I'll at least do it scene by scene, but I generally am in a certain key to where jumping to a different key in the same, it's jarring to where it's like, I don't know, I've had some directors like, well, I want something more like this, and it's like, well, but the whole rest of the film was done in this key, and to do that, I'm basically gonna have to start all over. So it's just, yeah, it's a musician thing.
What about notes that are, what we do is, what composers do is connect emotions to the music, right? And the music to the emotion. So whenever I get a note that is, this is too sad, this should have been meditative, but you made it too sad. To me, that's useful, right? For my kid, because I can kind of interpret that, right? So if they're putting it in those terms, that's great. If they're putting it in terms of like, this really needs a bassoon, then that's like,
Can we change the time signature here?
Yeah. But yeah, if they're talking about emotions, that's the whole point of the music, right? Is to marry the emotions.
It's more specific requests that are more agitating to the musicians, like the key or the specific instrument.
Yeah. Or play better.
Play better.
I don't I usually get.
Okay, anybody else have any more questions? You guys want to leave any lasting remarks? Something that everybody will remember you by?
I do have one last question.
Go ahead.
When it comes to sourcing things, do you find yourself reaching out more to directors and producers, or do you find them coming to you? What's the most thing that you would see when it comes to film scoring?
And at my point in this career, I'm reaching out, trying to, connect with people and, actively find jobs. I guess.
I agree. This is also networking, pretty much in-person stuff.
I guess what's the weirdest thing? I can't say that I've ever reached out to anybody. One of my films was well received and pirated over 3 million times to where people then just started coming to me. That movie was called Don't Fuck in the Woods, by the way. It's on Tubi, go watch it. Yeah, I can't say I've ever reached out to anyone. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for being here.